We pick up our story of Jesus as told by Matthew in his gospel in chapter 21, and we will be looking at verses 39 to 44. I will be reading out of Willis Barnstone's translation, the New Covenant, commonly called the New Testament, and this is volume 1 with the 4 Gospels and the Apocalypse. If I get my fingers out of the way there. Matthew chapter 29, and then reading at verse 39. And they seized him, threw him out of the vineyard, and they killed him. Now, when the Lord of the vineyard came, what will he do to those farmers? They said to him, those wicked ones he will destroy and will lease the vineyard to other farmers who will give him a share of the grape at vintage time. And Yeshua replied, have you never read in the Psalms, the stone that the builders rejected, it has become the cornerstone. That was made by the Lord and is a wonder to our eyes. For this reason, I tell you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to people producing its harvest. And the one falling on the stone will be broken, and it will crush anyone on whom it falls. When you read verse 43, it does not take much to realize why Jesus was crucified. Now, here's a question we could go back and forth on, and it's one of these kind of fun little questions to debate on and work through. Did Jesus really have to die? Could Jesus avoid being crucified? In order to answer these questions, you have to understand what precipitated his death. It was not the miracles that Jesus did, even those on the Sabbath, that led to his death. It was not the parables or his teaching in general that did it. In fact, it was not even the claims that he made of himself that did it. What did Jesus do that pushed the buttons, that led to his death? Well, my paraphrase of what happened is that Jesus was not content to let sleeping dogs lie. Where do churches fail in their ministry? Churches can be socially involved and active in their community through a number of noble causes. Churches can have an effective and extensive teaching ministry that reaches all ages. Churches can have the latest and best sound and light equipment in a sanctuary and provide a state-of-the-art, completely modernized, full sensory worship experience. Churches can have a wonderful array of gifted leaders leading the church in various ministries. And all of this, the church's unofficial statement can be, though, or purpose can be, let sleeping dogs lie. Yes, we will tackle offensive issues out there in our community, such as the proposed opening of a new strip club on the edge of town. We will berate the evils of self-indulgent and self-centered politicians that corrupt our democracy. What we will not do is treat certain issues with any depth because we know they're going to touch a little too close to home. We will not challenge people to really follow through on their faith commitment. We will let sleeping dogs lie. We have to see and understand that the work of the church, of its teaching and preaching of the gospel, can be done in ways that does not offend. And I almost want to say never offends. Now, when that is said, we are not seeing the merits of being offensive. I will not dignify the name of a church that in the last few years has been in the news, a church in the United States, who through its work and activities in the wider community has come to be held with a certain amount of repugnancy as being offensive in what it does. You see, it is easy to offend out there as a church and not be offensive within the walls of our congregation. We can play it safe in the life of our church. It is very easy to develop an us versus them sort of ministry. We are God's chosen, we are God's elect, God's blessed. It's those people out there that are the problem. When we are talking of being offensive, this is not what we are talking of. What we are saying is that the community of faith, in order to be effective, must not be afraid to push its members forward in the faith. We must not be afraid of losing them or their money. Jesus in this parable makes it very clear that God was not happy with his chosen people. Israel was to be an example to the nations when it came to the life of faith. God had given so much to his people, and yet so many, not all, were not willing to reciprocate the love God poured out on them back to God. The kingdom of God was their birthright, and they, again, not all, rejected it. We misinterpret it to mean all Jews in all places are forever cursed. No, no, 1,000 times no. No, the lesson of what Jesus says here is captured by what Paul wrote in Romans chapter 11. And that chapter, Paul says that the nation of Israel is like an olive tree. And into that natural olive tree, wild branches have been grafted in. What he is talking about, Paul, there is that the Gentiles, those outside the promise, have been grafted in to partake of the promise like a branch into a natural olive tree. Paul says, reading from the New International Version in Romans chapter 11, verse 21, "For if God did not spare the natural branches, he will not spare you either." Paul was warning, and our parable here in Matthew chapter 21 is a warning to all churches that it's not enough to claim the truth of the faith and to claim the faith if we are not willing to live it out.